because of my military training, I knew what the trigger was. I knew what a safety was. I knew what a manual of arms was. I knew the action of how a semi-automatic rifle works. I knew the action of how a semi-automatic pistol worked. But what I didn't know and what I didn't actually start learning until I started becoming an instructor was, yeah, you might be a gunfighter on a foreign soil if somebody hands you a rifle, but it's a completely different story when you put a gun on your body, cover it up, and go walking around as a civilian.
What is going on, everybody? 'Tis I, the enigma of the gun airwaves, Miyanovich, welcoming you to Season 3 of the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast, where unprecedented perspectives are packed into the cargo hold for the LGO Lens spaceship Voyagio.
That's fucking Italian.
Don't believe that evolution is possible with guns and public safety in America? It's already happening, y'all. Minds are evolving. Think guns versus public safety is the only game in town, do ya? Think culture war is the big boss, do ya? Then keep your ass in the past. Everyone else, all aboard! Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast. It is I, Miyanovich, again, for a banger, a real ballyhoo, a Donnybrook up in the brain box. Today with Deryck Poole. Today I'm introducing you to Deryck Poole. Deryck has 17 years of experience as a firearms instructor. He has conducted training for both combat and non-combat personnel while serving as a rifleman and range safety NCO in the Marines. He is a senior combat-focused shooting instructor and works for Rob Pincus' ICE training as a staff instructor and outside instructor liaison. Deryck holds certifications from ICE Training and Glock Incorporated, plus multiple NRA instructor certifications. Deryck is also a senior training counselor for the USCCA Defensive Shooting Fundamentals Program and is a member of the Association of Defensive Shooting Instructors. Deryck is also... He's a lot of things. Deryck is a lot of things. He is also a big wig, big cheese at Pincus's Personal Defense Network. Deryck is also a friend of mine and has extended exceptional support to me in my firearms learning journey and the road to becoming a certified instructor, which I am, even though that certification is collecting dust in the closet where multiple skeletons are using it to roll giant fucking ghost blunts. Deryck was the instructor for my USCCA Defensive Shooting Fundamentals Instructor Certification course. His level of helpfulness is very typical of people that you will find who surround the highly competent foundation of the combat-focused shooting, defensive shooting fundamentals reality. People like Rob Pincus, Alessandro Padovani, Barrett Kendrick, Jeff Abraham, etc. It is important to note that people like Deryck and Rob Pincus want liberal gun owners to win. That is the only attitude that these men have ever shown me in years of being friends with them, even though they themselves are not liberals. They have been more helpful to liberal gun ownership than 99% of the people in our own fucking Facebook group. Those are facts. And this is important to note because it shows the difference between the real world and the world that culture war and gatekeepers want us to believe in. Deryck has been nothing but supportive, helpful, and a constant open door to me, giving me access to incredibly valuable information anytime I ask for it for free. During this discussion, you will hear Deryck and I talking about the use of what is known as target-focused shooting or unsighted fire, a proven and essential component of self-defense firearms training, as in many close-up engagements, the use of sights or optics is entirely fucking unnecessary. We speak about this aspect because to many experienced self-defense trainers, including myself, not so experienced. Have you ever been experienced? I'm going to stand up next to a mountain of FUD lore and chop it down with the edge of my fucking hand. Anyway, the aspect that separates legitimate armed self-defense training from outdated training is the inclusion of unsighted fire with the typical uses of sighted fire, both unsighted and sighted fire rolling around together like two randy dwarves after 6 flagons of Midsummer's Eve mead during the fucking attack of the Northern Fire Drakes. Anyway, if you do not know about target or threat-focused shooting, also known as point shooting, shooting that involves kinesthetic alignment, etc., and you carry a gun for self-defense, you should be asking yourself why this aspect is essential to all learned and legitimate armed self-defense instructors, yet you are unaware of it, or even worse, you know about it, yet you poo-poo it. Among all of the takeaways from this series, this is the question that I am hoping many of you who carry start to ask yourself. Why don't I know about this? Or why do I not use this or train it? Although there are many different videos out there about target-focused shooting, particularly videos from PDN, I think nothing gets the point across better than Instructor Zero's videos. Just Google Instructor Zero, that's the word Z-E-R-O, no sights. That's Instructor Zero, no sights. It's not magic. We all have the ability to do it and to mix it in with our typical training that uses sights and optics. As it pertains to reality-based armed self-defense training, there is no better curriculum than the combat-focused shooting, defensive shooting fundamentals curriculum. There is a reason why both LGO and LGC support this. There is a reason why the USCCA has absorbed it into their curriculum. And there's a reason why thousands and thousands of people train with it. liberalgunowners@gmail.com. Let me say that again. liberalgunowners@gmail.com is where you can ask me for resources related to this training. Let me save you some time. There is no reality where this training is being done 4 blocks from your house, where you have to put in no exceptional time, money, or effort. You will, for the most part, have to get up off of your ass and go make it happen. But I digress. So, without further ado, please join me in this 2-part discussion with the most famous unknown gun guy, Deryck Poole. So let's fucking cut the shit. So Deryck Poole, welcome to the Liberal Gun Owners Lens podcast, man. It's great to have you here.
Hey, thanks for having me, man.
I wanted to have you on last year, but things got really busy. You know, when you start a podcast, you do a lot of stuff with media. When you start a podcast, you're like the little engine that could. You're like, who's going to be on my podcast? I don't think anybody's going to want to do that. But my list like blew up real fast. So I did want to have you on last year, but I'm glad I finally got a chance to get you here. So thank you for coming.
Oh, my pleasure, man. I know you're getting busy, and I really think it's cool that you're doing this podcast for this group. You know, my wife was actually asking, what are y'all talking about? I go, I don't know.
Yeah.
What's the podcast about? I said, I go, I don't know. We're just going to talk. I go, Brady and I just talk when we get together.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much crossover between, I don't know what you're considering yourself these days, but you're always very libertarian-ish to me. And there's so much crossover in that Venn diagram. There's very little difference, I think, when you boil it down, especially when you get to the guns and the self-defense part. So yeah, I as somebody who's trained with you and been taught by you and know you, I think you have a very unique perspective, important perspective, and I wanted people to get exposed to it. I think the tendency is for liberals who own guns, they like to hide in a haven in a harbor and get into an echo chamber. So one of the best things I think we can do for the podcast is to be exposed a little bit more to libertarian-ish thinking. So people can learn that there's a lot more crossover than they think. So let's talk about this. Let's talk about the Marines. Why don't we talk about the Marines first? So you were in the Marines, and there is an obvious concentration on the importance of marksmanship. Did you instruct in the Marines? I can't remember if you told me that or not.
I wasn't like a primary marksmanship instructor like at like Paris Island or San Diego or any of that stuff. I taught non-infantry personnel remedial cruise served weapon stuff for my last tour when I got to Quantico, Virginia. Okay. So like the SAW, the Modus 50 cal, like stuff like that. I would run the range safety officer, that kind of stuff, working out of range control. But no, I did not carry the secondary MOS. So I don't even know what the MOS number is, but of a primary marksmanship instructor.
How do you get into that? Like, are you like, I want to do that? You raise your hand and you're like, I want to do that shit. Or are they like, Poole, you're doing that shit? How did you get into it?
Well, for what I did, it was just range control part of our mission. Like our mission was like, we were in charge of range safety. And because we were attached to HNS battalion, headquarters and service battalion, which is primarily non-infantry personnel, I was in a billet that was only infantry personnel, or not infantry, combat arms, 03 MOSs. So when it came time for them to do their requals and stuff like that, they looked to us because we had guys that were weapons platoon. So they were machine gunners. We had guys that that was their primary MOS. So they looked to us to do the remedial training for the non-infantry or non-combat MOS, personnel, because they were required, if we were in a combat zone, they were required to provide their own area of security. So they had to know how those weapons function and how to use them and stuff like that. But if you wanted to be a PMI, like a primary marksmanship instructor, I'm not actually 100% sure, but everyone I ever dealt with carried, an MOS or secondary MOS of drill instructor. So like once you got the Paris Island or recruit Depot San Diego, you were working with a platoon or you were rotated out and then you went to additional training and then you went and worked on the range doing the range ball part.
Like at the fundamental level of marksmanship, describe what the difference is between the Marines and the Army. Like why are the Marines known for having I would say higher standard with marksmanship than maybe the Army does? What's the difference there?
Well, I mean, the Marine Corps, it's in our name, right? Every Marine is a rifleman. It comes from right from the beginning at boot camp. Every Marine is a rifleman. So it didn't matter if you got the boot camp and your MOS was supposed to be banned, or if your MOS was supposed to be something in the combat arms of, infantry, mortarmen, something like that. Didn't matter. We all went to the range. We all did our snap in where we sit around and dry fire for days and days and days on end, with primary marksmanship instructors walking around us, making sure your breath control is right, your trigger press is right, and all this stuff, with everybody pointed at a 50 drum barrel with a little bullseye target on it, working on, trigger press. I'm not really sure why the Army, I guess it's just, they don't say every man's a rifleman like we do, and the Marines try to live up to every man's a rifleman. Every person's a rifleman now. Because the women did it too.
Every Marine I've known, that's one of the things that we talk about. There's a spirit there that with marksmanship that's not necessarily there in all of the people I've ever talked to that are in the Army. So like once you get you're doing like basic training and then you move forward and advance with marksmanship in the Marine Corps, are you continuing to like hammer those fundamentals at the same level like all the time? Are you still being drilled through snapping in and those things, or do they kind of treat that like in the very beginning you get that stuff in your bones and then you let it go?
Yeah. And
you move on to other fundamentals, but
yeah, like I'm trying to remember back. I mean, it's been a while, but like I don't remember ever snapping in again. Now you rifle qual yearly. We would go to the rifle range and qual, yearly, for our, expert marksmanship, like whatever your qualification level was, to make sure that you could at least meet the minimum standard. But after that, it was like you would go to the range for, like one of those 29 palms was like my last official. Like we went for a week and we spent like 3 days of actual shooting on targets and practicing our marksmanship, because if we're not on the range, you're out doing training, then it's more like it's more of like, did you hit the target? Yes or no? Not, is that a 10 or is that an 8 hit? Did you hit the target? Because we had like this targeting system. We call them Igors, these little green men, silhouette, plasticky, polymer-y things that would sit out in the field. And, we had a targeting system where they pop up and start running down the berm and, we'd shoot them and stuff like that. And like, then it was just sort of like, are you hitting what you're supposed to be hitting? Not scoring it. So more along the lines of how we do it defensively.
Yeah. Actual combat application shooting.
Correct.
And of course you guys were entirely on the M4, right? That's what.
Yeah. Back when I was in M16A2, I'm an antique man. I did not see a holographic optic sitting on top of a rifle until I got to Quantico. And that was, there was a group at Quantico on main side that would actually test all the new stuff coming in, or the stuff that like the manufacturers and stuff would be like, hey, you guys should be using this. And so they would bring it out and test it, for the War College. And, so I'd get my hands on it. And like I saw the first, EOTech before they started showing up on rifle. But yeah, like my night vision scope on my rifle was probably about that big, about 12 inches or more longer, and like weight is about, I think it weighed a little bit more than my rifle actually weighed, sitting on top of the carrying handle. It was pretty brutal. And then it looked like old snow. Like, I don't know if you or any of your listeners have messed with any of the new night vision stuff. It's absolutely amazing. Like, I've gone out with Don Edwards at Green Line Tactical. He's another PDN guy, ICE guy. And, he was like, dude, he goes, try these on. And I put them on and I was like, oh my God. You could like see who was who. Like before it was just like silhouettes.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And, there's a question I had in there. What was this? What years were you in?
I was in from 92 to 2000. I got out, 3 months before 9/11. I actually EAS'd and got my DD-214.
You were just like 8 years is enough. Did you have plans to like be a lifer or?
Yeah, I did. But here's the full scoop, right? I did a 4-year active duty enlistment. And then, so your first contract is 8 years long and it's 4 years of active duty and then 4 years of inactive reserve. So I did my 4 years and I was like, my plan was I'm doing one. And because of relationship stuff and, if we're getting married and you're getting out because all your friends are divorced, I got out and got married and like went into the reserves and did a year of reserves. It was like, cause I was so used to the regular Marine Corps, active duty, fleet Marine Force that like moving to weekend stuff was just like, I can't. So then I went into the IR back into the inactive ready reserve for the last 3. So, did a technical 8-year stint, did an actual 4-year of active duty, 1 year reserve and 3 years of inactive ready reserve.
What do you do when you do the inactive, reserve deal? What's the difference there between that and doing the weekend schlubbing?
Oh, you don't have to worry about your haircut. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. You have to be ready to be recalled. So like after 9/11 happened, I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of IR guys that got recalled, because after 9/11 happened, I was actually had my DD-214 in my hand at the house and I got a call from my career recruiter asking if I wanted to sign back up. Cause when I got out, I was a sergeant and I was like, you know what? There's nothing I'd love to do more, but I now have a house payment and I have a car payment and I have a corporate job and my corporate job pays 3 times what a E5 gets paid in the Marine Corps. And I cannot afford to, just let my credit, get decimated because I'm like, I want to go back into the Marine Corps.
Yeah. When you leave the Marine Corps after having all of this experience with weaponry and you enter into the space of civilian self-defense, concealed carry, all of that stuff, is it like, I'm sure it's a stark difference, obviously, but are you like, holy shit, these people are fucking numbnuts? Like, is there like oh my God, this is really bad? Did you have like feelings like that?
At first, when I first got into it, I got my first concealed carry permit was Utah, non-resident concealed carry. Because I lived in Maryland. In Maryland, getting a concealed carry permit in Maryland, there was like this very narrow sliver of people that could actually get a permit in the state of Maryland. Still wanted one and I still traveled. So, reciprocity was a thing. So I got that and I got Florida because I came to Florida a lot on a motorcycle. And at first, I wasn't an instructor. I started out as just a regular old student in a class and like looked around and was like, I know a whole lot more than these people. But I knew guns, right? Because of my military training, I knew what the trigger was. I knew what a safety was. I knew what a manual of arms was. I knew the action of how a semi-automatic rifle works. I knew the action of how a semi-automatic pistol worked. But what I didn't know and what I didn't actually start learning until I started becoming an instructor was, you might be a gunfighter on a foreign soil if somebody hands you a rifle, but it's a completely different story when you put a gun on your body, cover it up, and go walking around as a civilian. And like my ignorance was the I don't know what I don't know type thing was I'm a gunfighter. I literally had 5 different guns that like today I feel like a say P226 day. Today I feel like it's a Glock day. Like somebody picking a purse or a parachute to match your like that was the kind of clown stuff I did. And it was like, then I started becoming a teacher and then I was like, I'm just going to carry the Glock because it's this, that, and the other. It wasn't until I started working with Rob and really got into the, the nitty gritty of, dude, you might think you're a gunfighter, but stop being a clown show. Like you can handle any gun that you need to. You can teach any gun you need to, but you're much better prepared to defend yourself if you stick to one type of gun or one type of action of gun and become really good at that type of gun instead of this, I'm a 1911 kind of day, that kind of ridiculous.
Right. How did you get to Rob and IC training? Like what?
It's a funny story. I was working at Maryland Firearms Training Group, and the lead instructor, he worked for the State Department on security, like their DSS, Defense Security. And what he would do is he would leave country and go to different countries and check out the security teams and how is the security set up for like an ambassador or the different government workers that were overseas and stuff like that. And so it was his school, and I was like one of his instructors, and he was sort of my first mentor. And he had to go out of town, and he was like, "Hey," he goes, "I'm going out of town, and I'm probably going to be gone for a month." He goes, "You want to keep running classes, or do you want to go off and do some of your own training?" Cause like I'd gone to Blackwater and stuff like that. Cause for a little while I was thinking, maybe I'll be a contract. He was kind of pushing me towards it. And I was like, no, I think I'm gonna go get some training. And it was between Gabe Suarez or Rob Pincus. And it wasn't really Gabe Suarez or Rob Pincus. It was something from Suarez International or whatever the Gabe Suarez's training company at the time was, an IC training. And IC training had a class going on about an hour and a half, 2 hours away from where I lived. And it just said staff instructor. And I'm like, you know what? Like, we got some of those American Rifleman videos that we play in the lobby from time to time. Let's see what this stuff is firsthand. Cause I casually watched it as it was playing over and over again. And I sat there and I was waiting. And all of a sudden here comes Sean, the guy on the video. And he gets telling it was FJ. And I was like, "Hey, you're the guy from the video." He goes, "Hey, yes, I am." And that it was sort of like, the fluke. It was combat focused shooting, 2-day combat focused shooting in 2010. And I went through it, and it clicked with me, and like it wasn't like all of a sudden I got the class and Rob's like, "You're the greatest thing ever." I was sitting there, I was like on the line, I'm like, "I'm the best shot in this class." He comes up to me, he goes, "Why don't you stop using your sights? If you want to learn something, learn something. Don't stay here and just be a clown using your sights when I tell you don't." And I'm like, oh my God, how does this guy know I'm using my sights? Because dude, I was standing on that line and I'm like, Marines don't miss. And I don't care what this little guy says, I'm not missing. When he was like, both eyes open, focus on the target, present the gun in a parallel with line of sight. There was no way in hell I was going to trust this little guy and be the one guy on the line that missed. Man, I just extended that gun, closed an eye, popped that round dead center of that box, and I'm like, yeah, feeling all proud of myself. Yeah. Right. And then all of a sudden I start stacking bullets, touching each other. And that's when he comes up to me and I'm like, here comes the pat on the back. And he like just busted my bubble. I was like, damn. And I was also highly impressed that he was able to bust me. I was like, how does he know?
Yeah.
So
let's take an aside on that little nugget, because that's a very important thing. That's something that I've learned as well. Let's talk about gun ego, because the way that guns are taught in this country and the way that people learn is so highly dependent upon sight picture, sight alignment, and everything deriving from sticking your tongue out and lining it up in that way. Everything derives from that. And so when people who are into guns are on the range with other people, there's an automatic thing with most people. They want to show that, right? They want to show the ultimate test for how good a person is with a gun is how close your fucking bullets are.
Yeah. Yeah, right? Absolutely.
And there's ego built into that. And I find, I guess it doesn't really matter if the person's a beginner or advanced. You find it all the way through a lot of different people. And when you try to break that down, boy, are there some interesting reactions. But when you just introduce target focus shooting and you go through that, the people will fucking lie like immediately. Like their ego is so fragile or their ego is so high that they will not do what you fucking say because they're worried about what everybody else is going to think of their target.
Yep. No, right? Absolutely.
And I've watched that break down in people. I've watched people repeatedly not do it. And you can tell, like in your story, you can tell if your groups are so tight and you're taking too much time, you're using your fucking sight. So anyway, you've seen that Since Rob sort of broke that habit in you, you've seen that over and over again. Yes. In your experience?
Absolutely. And I don't know. I think you probably heard me say my line. I use pretty much this same line every class when I introduced the target focus, threat focus shooting. And I'm like, all right, both eyes open, focus on target. I'm like, now the urge is going to be to close your eye and do it. How do I know? Because I did it. And I got busted for it when I was standing on that line as an instructor, not as an instructor, but as a brand new student to this program. Stop cheating yourself and don't be what Deryck was. Don't do it. Like, it doesn't matter. If you miss, you miss. We're going to figure it out why. We're going to fix it. But all you're doing is gypping yourself, and I'm going to bust you for it because it's very easy to tell when you're using your sights. Do you remember me saying something along those lines to start the?
Yeah, definitely.
Because
I definitely remember that.
You're going to, all you end up doing is cheating yourself. And all I did really was cheat myself in the first hour of class. And now that I know it and now that I've been through it, now when I step out on the range, I don't care if it's an ICE training class with Rob or one of our other adjunct instructors, or if I'm out doing a class with somebody that has nothing to do with ICE training. When it's time to shoot and I don't think I need to use my sights, I'm not going to need to use my sights. And I completely block out what anybody else is going to think about this. All I care about is getting a defensive accurate hit as fast as I can. And then if I miss, people in 4 counties are going to know I missed because I swear cussing, pretty much throw a temper tantrum. Because every time I pull the trigger, I expect something to be hit. I expect my hit to hit where it does. Otherwise, I wouldn't be pulling the trigger.
Yeah, I do remember you saying that at the training, the certification training that I was at with you. And I do remember even after you said that and reinforced it a number of different times, I still remember looking over and being able to see gun ego in some of the dudes that were still fucking doing it. I say to people, look, sighted fire is so important. Also, it's never going to go away. You'll always need it. You'll always work on it. It's not a waste that you spend so much time on it, but you got to let go. If you want to defend life, you've got to also learn this other thing. And it's amazing how good your body and your being is at it kind of naturally. If you just kind of get into it and train it a bunch, the things will go where you want them to go. And still it's a process. But one of the things I've learned from being part of the defensive shooting curriculum is, I would say, how badly dependent the gun training is in general on sighted fire. It worships it to a point where it betrays reality. It's a mythology. And I don't see, other than what, ICE or PDN or anything related, mostly to, I guess I would say other instructors are doing this too. It seems to be improving, but generally speaking, you don't have a lot of people out there saying, hey, sighted fire and unsighted fire, both super important. You don't see that at the general level.
Yeah.
From the NRA or anything like that.
And a lot of it is, I would say, a lot is it they're teaching to, they're worried about the law of defending your actions in court type thing. That plays into it. A lot of it just is, we all get complacent. I've had a lot of instructor development classes, and a lot of instructors have come through that class. They're certified in this, and this, and from a lot of big name schools and stuff like that. So there's also ego tied to that too. It's now I'm trying to pull them out of their comfort zone. Well, wait a minute. That's my 2.5 hour, 3 hour block of teaching, training, shooting is sighted fire. And now you're taking that away from me. How am I going to fill that 2-3 hour block of teaching with all of a sudden you taught that to us in less than 20 minutes and had us practicing it or, practicing it within 25 minutes. And I'm like, well, you use it all day long. It doesn't take long to teach, and you're still going to go back and fix it. But when we mix the sighted and unsighted together in drills, that makes the student better. The student now all of a sudden starts learning their own capabilities at that point in time and being able to develop further training for themselves because, it's time, effort, energy, and money to come out to have a professional instructor teaching you this stuff. So I want my students to no, okay, I need to practice unsighted. I need to practice sighted. Which one am I having more problems with? And how do I go do it on my own when I go to my gun club or go to the indoor range or whatever else and maximize my training because, bullets aren't getting cheaper. They went crazy, during pandemics and crazy during a couple high profile shootings. People go panic buy or hoarding unnecessarily. But, and it eventually comes back, but it never comes back to the $5 box of white box Winchester for 50 rounds. It never comes back to what it was before. So, I'm just trying to maximize my students' ability to train on their own with the resources that they have, because not everybody can show up to a range with, the high zoo, professionally stippled and RMR cut milled with an RMR and, like all that stuff. A lot of people are, especially down here in Florida, fixed income, and they have one gun, and that gun is the home defense gun and the gun that they carry with them when they go somewhere. So, it's really important for that person to be able to go do this on their own, so that, God forbid, they do need to use their gun, they're better trained than what they would be if all they did was spend the day on the range doing that old school sighted fire.
Do you foresee a breakdown? Let's call it the mythology of sighted, or the religion of sighted fire, or the mythology of sighted fire. Not that it's not super important. Obviously it is. We can't shoot without our fucking eyes. We got to line shit up. We need optics. We need irons. Super, super important. But there's a religion that's kind of developed around it, right? That people think that's shooting. That's the sum total of shooting. Sighted fire, sight alignment, sight picture. You use your eyes, you stick your hands out, you stick your tongue out, and they think that is shooting. But the problem is that's not true, particularly the closer that you get to defending life and the sort of the scientific basis we have for the information that happens with defensive actions with a gun. It falls apart somewhat, right? Or reasonably, it falls apart many times. So do you foresee that religion or that mythology breaking down, or do you think it's just always going to be like there are those cats that know and those that don't, and the NRA systems are still going to be just like line it up and stick your tongue out?
I honestly, I think it's always going to be around to some point, there's programs that like evolved and included intuitive unsighted fire or threat focused shooting, whatever you want to call it, point shooting, whatever you want to call it. And they like redid a program and went back to, shot timers and scores. And it's always going to be a thing. All we can do is, point out why it's important to our students, how to continue training it, and why it's defensible if you had to end up in court. How you can, granted, could you say, I'm really good at kinesthetically aligned shooting, body's natural alignment, two eyes open, and I shot and I missed, and I hit I hit something I wasn't supposed to hit, or something I shouldn't have hit. It can happen. Yeah. It can also happen with using your iron sights, because you're not shooting most of the time down the hallway with, the body. There's only very little areas to miss. So sights, unsighted, they're all factors that are potential. Well, this could go really bad as opposed to really good, and being the guy on the front of the newspaper that saved 100 lives, or the guy that saved 99 lives because he missed the first shot and hit one. So hit one of the good guys.
Yeah. Are you, I can't remember. Are you carrying, with an optic these days, or are you irons? What are you doing?
Yeah. And really, somebody's like, do I have to have an optic on my gun? I still say no. Like, if you look at the statistics of using a gun and when you need it, is a red dot optic a necessity? No. But at the same time, the price point is at a place where it's not insurmountable. And the real main reason I switched to a gun with an optic was because I was starting to see more students show up with a gun with an optic on it. And instead of me sitting there citing references of Gabe Suarez or Aaron Cohen, or, because I'm never going to present information that's not my own. Like, if I haven't vetted the information myself, if I'm using somebody else's information, I'm going to cite the reference of where it came from. And I was citing these other people that were known for red dot stuff, and I had read their stuff that they put out or watched their videos, and done my own, a little bit of testing with it too. Okay. You know what? I'm seeing a lot of red dots. It's time for me to put a red dot on a gun, carry a red dot on my gun, and train with a red dot on my gun so I can better serve my students. So that's why I do, Trijicon, Holosun, it doesn't matter. Something that's reliable, that's proven reliable. But if you're going to do it, do it.
And it hasn't thrown off your carrying reality at all. Like, you can't tell.
No.
It doesn't bother you.
No. The one thing I will say with having a red dot on top of the gun, I get less than mice holes on the bottom of my shirt. Those little holes that end up in church from, iron sights grabbing a hole and pulling threads like that. Those have been cut way down because the optic sort of keeps the shirt away from the iron sights. But No,
Yeah.
other than that, and all the holster makers are either making holsters that accept a gun with an RMR on it, or they just have gun. You can have it with or without. It doesn't change the retention at all. So
yeah, we talk a lot about, I was in the Army. I was a cop. Like, so there's a lot of justification for carrying on kind of substandard patterns with marksmanship or with gun usage. And the person justifies bringing that horseshit forward, or they're basically stating authority because they served or they were a cop. And so you admitted you were a Marine and you showed up at a self-defense class and you were like, fuck you, I'm fucking Johnny Big Time. And then Rob burst that bubble. Do you see that a lot? Do you see guys that are like, I was a cop, or I'm a cop, or
yeah, like that's not how we did it in our unit or our department and stuff like that. Yeah, I see it all the time. That's one of the benefits. I've been doing this for a long time and like worked with Rob for a long time. And by working with Rob, I got exposed to a lot of stuff. So like I taught SWAT Roundup for 4 years with Rob. So I got exposed to it. So, my why answers to my regular classes, like debunked my ability to answer or refute these whys, way above what the average instructor does. But, when I have instructor candidates come in, those are the guys that, a lot of times when it's time for teachbacks, and you know how the teachbacks are, it's very unsettling to stand up in front of all your other instructor candidates and teach back big worded stuff and have me standing there going, no, stop talking. Think about what you're saying, So like that ego gets kind of bumped in there. But like, people are like, well, I'm not going to go train with that guy because he wasn't in the military or he wasn't a cop. And I'm like, some of the best instructors I know never once had an armed professional. They can relay information. They can look at human movement patterns. They can correct you. And on top of all of that, they can give you extremely good answers of why it shouldn't be because of that department does it that way or that military.
I mean, the experience of it and the truth of it, defensive shooting fundamentals and target focus shooting, kinesthetic alignment and all of that. Maybe it's not for everybody, but at least for me, like within the first class, I could see it paying off. Like I could see it happening. I mean, you're basically saying, look, fuckers, trust me on this. Just do what I say. Stop fucking thinking. Stop struggling. Just do what I say, and you're about to see it for yourself. And that's exactly what happened. What happened a little bit in the first semi-disastrous day I spent with Rob on the range. What a day that was with Rob on one of his worst fucking days ever, from what Jeff told me, Jeff Abraham. But I got it a little bit from Rob then, but when I came and was with you and Jeff, it really opened up that day. I was like, okay, holy shit. Like this is a real thing. You actually don't have to fucking look down the irons or at your dot. You just look at the target, line your body up, and it is consistent. Like you get there. And it was awesome. Right. So I just hope that, more people have that sort of in the first class or in the second class. It just, whether they were a cop or whether they were in the Army or whatever, it just, they go, holy shit. Right. Cause that's really what I think the beauty of that part of defensive shooting is you can let go, and be effective.
And a lot of it has to do with the fact that, that like you were talking about, that iron sight mentality of even for the newest shooter. They probably got a gun and they end up on YouTube or something and you see sight alignment sight picture, or you see sight alignment sight pictures in the owner's manual type thing. But step out on the range with me or any of the other ICE guys, and I'm sure you're going to hear something along the lines of, listen, who here has ever used a hammer and nail? When you use the hammer and nail, did you actually close an eye to hit the nail? Or did you sort of look at it and line everything up and maybe give it a little tap, tap? Like, okay, I got this, tap, tap. And then as you start getting braver, you go tap, tap, bang, ow, my freaking thumb, I just smashed it. Well, you smashing your thumb is you going a little too fast using kinesthetic alignment. That's the hammer hitting you in the thumb. But all those other hits in the box are that tap, tap, or the little medium swing or the little bit bigger swing on that hammer and nail.
I have a large argument all the way back to 300,000 years ago about this. And of course, Rob's curriculum touches on it just like a little bit, right? But we were born to be good at it, part of this. And that's why we're good at it. and we can rely on it, whether it's a spear or an atlatl or a bow and arrow or a gun. It's in there. We just have to kind of like wake up the inner Homo sapien. That's what you guys do. And by the way, to everybody that's listening, if I don't mention it in the intro that I will record for this episode, that Alessandro Padovani is also inside of the cadre of instructors that surround this curriculum and Rob and ICE training. And Alessandro, he at least was the national instructor for the Liberal Gun Club. I don't know if he's still doing that. I haven't touched base with him for a couple months. But so the guy that's leading the Liberal Gun Club's curriculum is also a part of defensive shooting fundamentals or combat focused shooting or this school of defensive marksmanship.